Stevie Gold and I go way back about, 31 minutes? Something like that. 33 minutes we met here. I said, you can't forget about him. He is just delightful. You're in for a really good treat. Would you please give a warm Lakewood Ranch welcome to our closer, Stevie Gold. Come on up, Mama Love. Come on up.
So, my name is Steve Gold, but as a comedian, I'm named Stevie Gold. Originally from the Catskills. I'm a nice Jewish boy. I don't know if you can tell. But, one of the things I learned is listening to your parents, you get so much humor from them. So I'll never forget, when I'm living in New York, my mother calls me from Florida, and she says, Stevela. She called me Stevela. She said, I think we need to fly your father home from Florida. I said, Ma, why would we want to do that? He's very sick. He's on dialysis. We're even thinking of taking him into hospice. Why would you want to fly him home? And she says, Belle, I was talking to a friend, and JetBlue has a one-way special to fly for $99. And I'm thinking, maybe we should fly your father home for $99 alive, because I heard to fly a casket is $10,000. So I don't understand why we need to spend the extra money. Of course we didn't do that. Unfortunately, my father passes. I go to the airport, pick up my mother. She comes off the plane, and the first thing she says to me, I still think we should have flown your father home for $99. So to me, it was every Jewish mother's dream. Guilt, death, and not paying retail. My mother was also giving very good advice. So my sister was going to the prom. So my mother says, we need to have the talk. So they sit down and she says, Estela. Everybody in my family ended with a la. Don't ask me why, it's a Jewish thing. She says, Estela, I know when you're gonna go out on the prom, you're gonna have a good time, and afterwards, your date's gonna ask to kiss you, and that's okay, because I'm not gonna worry about that. After he kisses you for a while, he'll probably wanna touch your breast and touch other places, and that's okay, because I'm not gonna worry about that. But whatever you do, don't let him get on top of you, because that I'm gonna worry about. She says, Mom, don't worry. She comes home, my mother greets her at the door and says, so Estela, how was it? She says, Ma, it was everything you said. He kissed me, and I let him because I knew his mom, you weren't gonna worry, and I let him touch my breast and my vagina because I knew you weren't gonna worry. And she says, ay, 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 I hope you didn't let him get on top of you. She said, no, I got on top of him, let his mother worry. My mother fainted, and I had to pick her up. Now, after my mother gives advice, of course my father gives advice, and his advice is all about sex. So he told me, Steve, look, I have sex with your mother almost every day. And I say, Dad, do I need to know this? You have sex with Mom almost every day? And he says, yeah, almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday. That's a really old Catskill joke. And then he says to me, then you masturbate. That's the most sensitive part of your body. And I said, what are you talking about? What is the most sensitive part of my body when I masturbate? And he says, your ears, so you can listen for the footsteps. When I was, I think in 6th grade or 5th grade, and I would get National Geographic, that was the only way I was able to see breasts for the first time. And I got infatuated with breasts. So infatuated that everything out of my mouth was breast. No matter what it was described, was breast. So my father said, this is crazy. I'm taking you to a psychiatrist to see if we can get you cured from associating everything with breast. So we go to the doctor, the psychiatrist, he sits down with me and he says, Stevie, what we're gonna do, we'll play a word association game. Whatever word I say, you say the first thing that comes to your mouth, to your mind. I say, okay. He says, watermelon. I say, breast. Yeah, all right, cantaloupes. I say, breast. He says, okay, oranges. I again say breast. And he says, okay, cherries. And I say breast. And he's thinking and thinking. He says, all right, I got one for you. Windshield wipers. And I say breast. He says, how the hell do you associate windshield wipers with breasts? And I go, so we're living here about a year. We came from New York. And one of the first things I got very confused, whenever I saw the UTC sign, I thought it was UTI. I just think that's when you have an infection, you go to the mall. I also thought Publix was named pubic. And I also found out that down here, ED does not stand for erectile dysfunction. It talks about early dinner. And I also found out that the BOGOs is not buy one, get one free. It means bring it on, I'm getting old. You know, again, we're here a year, and when you move to a new development, everybody opens your home because everybody wants to meet everybody. So you go to a new home, and the first thing you do when you walk in with your wife, wow, look what they did. How come we didn't do that? Or, what the fuck did they do? Am I so glad we didn't do that? And then we all go home, and we go to their Facebook profile to see if we want to like them. You know, one of the things I learned about Florida, there's no more happy hours. That was for our parents. Now we have, what do we have?
It is happy hour.
I'm sorry, with my parents, it was early bird specials. My wife's looking at me, you know, you screwed that up. As a matter of fact, if I died right now, she could finish my show. So it was early bird special. So of course we have happy hour. So happy hour is the same thing, except we go for lunch or for dinner, and we have free-range chicken and gluten-free everything. And then we go home and we post a picture on Facebook to make sure all our neighbors will have fear of missing out. You know, sports is big down here, pickleball. I'm sure everybody plays pickleball. A couple people. You know, one of the things I learned about pickleball, to me, it's a forecast of what we're going to be like when we get Alzheimer's. You ever hear you're playing pickleball? What's the score? What is it? Who's serving? 0-1-1? What does that mean? Was that in the kit? I don't know what that means. And then I was thinking, can you imagine going to other communities? Say you go to a Jewish community and they're playing pickleball. Do they say, oh my God, I hit the ball in the dairy kitchen? Do I have to wait a few hours before I hit it in the meat kitchen? And then the Greek, do they go when the ball hits the kitchen, somebody comes out and yells Opa and starts throwing dishes? Or the Spanish people, when they hit the kitchen, do they say ole and come out and hit a, what do you call those things? Panada? That to me is what pickleball is in ethnic communities. So, you know, I'm getting old. I'm going to be 72 in 3 weeks. But I found it weird because when I got my COVID shot the other day at Publix, and the woman says I need to see ID. to make sure how old you are. And I said, ugh. So I take out my wallet and my Blockbuster video card. And she said, "Ah, you don't have to show me that." So I grew up in the Catskills, and I was very fortunate to see all the comedy greats. Don Rickles, Henny Youngman, Rodney Dangerfield. So in honor of them, I want to do some one-liners that they would be doing on stage at the hotels. It's about, I'm so old. Now I'm reading this because I'm old and I don't remember. So I'm so old.
How old are you?
I remember when friends with benefits means you drive at night. I remember, I'm so old, I remember telling my friends I was going to pick up a hottie at a club. Now it means I'm going to Costco to pick up a hot rotisserie chicken. I'm so old, I remember watching TV commercials as a kid, and I would say, I have that toy. Now I watch commercials and I say, I have that medicine. I'm so old, I remember on our refrigerator, we had all our kids' pictures, report cards, invitations. Now I look at the refrigerator, all I see is doctor appointments. You know, also I remember in the old days, before emojis, we had to tell people how we felt by using our fingers. So remember? These kids today have no idea the creativity that we have. And I'm so old, I remember reaching orgasm when the AOL dial-up would connect. I am so old, I remember when infrequently was 2 words. Now it's 1 word, and it describes my current sex life. I'm so old, I remember when we could twist again like we did last summer. Now take that one out. I'm so old, I remember when I was in elementary school, we made ashtrays for our parents in art class. I'm so old, I remember a selfie was something you did in private while reading Playboy. And I'm so old, I remember when this was texting in elementary school.
Yeah.
That's in honor of Rodney Dangerfield. The other thing, we just became grandparents, and I'm sure a lot of you have become grandparents for the first time. And it's an amazing thing, the changes with babies in the 32 years since we had our kids. So remember when we had a baby, we bought a crib, a Bellini crib, whatever the most expensive crib was, and we bought the bumpers, and we bought the blankets, and we bought the pillows, and we bought the mobiles with the birds going around. Not anymore.
That's right.
You can't do that. Now, it's a crib with a mattress. But you have a camera, you now have a sound machine, right? Now the sound machine we had growing up with our kids, we would just leave the door open to our bedroom so they can hear me snore. And my wife sat my nephew the other day, and they have, the camera and the baby's sleeping. And no matter what the baby does, they have to watch it. But they put it up on their 82-inch screen TV. This is what these millennials do. You know, they said we were helicopter parents. These are drone parents. Thank you, Jim. You know, there's a trend on YouTube where I told this to my friend, you know, if you take Viagra, you cut it up in fifths. He says, why, you can get hard with a fifth of Viagra? I said, no, but I get it hard enough so I can pee over my shoes. So the other day, my wife and I, we make love. I finished, I don't think she ever did. And after we're done, she reaches to her drawer and she takes out like a credit card machine, and it has tips. So it has tips. 10%, I showed up. 20%, I didn't complain once while you were screwing me. And 25% is, I faked orgasm so you could be happy. And in the custom line, she wrote, maybe you should take more than a fifth of Viagra. You know, when my parents lived in Florida, I asked them, what do you do all day? So my mother would say, well, we go to the mall on Tuesday, and then we return everything on Wednesday. Now, I believe we do the same thing, except it's with Amazon. We buy from Amazon, and then we go back to UPS to return Amazon. But it's not just one item. First, we have to go to Publix, get the shopping cart, so we can put all the returns in the basket, bring it in the store, and then, God forbid, you get behind somebody who can't find their code. Oh wait, I know I have it. It's crazy. And then I'm thinking about Amazon. You remember in the old days, you would see somebody's kid that doesn't look like their parents, and you would say, was that from the milkman? And then the milkman disappeared, and then it became the mailman. Now that disappeared. Now he looks like the Amazon guy, the delivery guy. His smile is just going ear to ear. So the guy says, I'm going to get a paternity test. He ordered this from Amazon, and who brings it? The Amazon. You know, one of the great things Apple does is they're always innovative. And they came out with AirPods that translate automatically. I tried it on, and it's the first time I understood what my wife was trying to tell me. And also, men, how much do we love Alexa and Siri? You know why? Because they don't complain when we ask them to do something. You tell Alexa, turn off the light. There's no why can't you turn it off? Let's turn it off later. I just turned it on. She just turns it off. And then I say, Alexa, thank you. And she says, you're welcome. I tell my wife thank you. She says, go fuck yourself. So what I was saying, we moved down here from New York, and I had to get gas for the first time down here. Now, my license plate from New York is the vanity plate. It says I. That's it, just I. So I pull up to get gas. As I'm pumping the gas, a truck pulls up next to the pump, and he has a MAGA bumper sticker, and the guy comes out of the truck, huge guy with a ZZ Top beard, tattoos all over the place. And he's wearing a MAGA hat. And he's looking at my license plate. He looks at me, looks at my license plate again. He looks at me, and he says, you know, you spell yo backwards. And I I explained to him what it means. And I said to him, by the way, what is your name? And he says, Stevie. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Peace.
Thank you, Stevie. Thank you for coming to the show tonight. Under the full moon, did we have a